Drifting is a lot different than any other motorsport in the fact that it's really all on you. It's you, the car, and the track. Even in a tandem battle, it's still you. Sure, you have to follow the other person's line in front of you and maybe mimic what they're doing, but it's still all on you. That is a quote from Formula Drift pro racer Chelsea Denofa, describing what really matters when we pursue our own goals, and that is the effort that we put in for ourselves. And today we're joined by another fan of all things cars and motorsports. Cory Billington is a red teamer for a large Fortune 500 company holding certifications like OSCP and OSWE. He's credited with the discovery of several CVEs, with disclosures impacting large products from vendors like VMware and PHPBB. Welcome, Cory.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Doing all right. I was trying to hold myself back from asking you before we started recording, but what would you say is your favorite car in the world?
I'm not really super partial to any one car. For me, it's kind of like whatever I want to do at the time. So I always kind of find myself gravitating towards turbo all-wheel drives, just because they are something that you can have fun with in a lot of different environments. But I don't know. I've owned a lot of cars over the years and done a lot of different stuff with cars. So I kind of enjoy everything from high horsepower like Supras, GTRs, that type of stuff. You see on 1320 video or whatever. That stuff's awesome to me.
Yeah.
I favorite form of driving is probably rally. Just because I really enjoy the vehicle dynamics of controlling a car on multiple types of surfaces. So yeah, that's probably my favorite form. Closely followed by road racing and wet weather. That is also another incredibly fun form of motorsport. So, each one of those, I feel like, to answer the question of what my favorite car would be, it's going to change depending on what I'm doing in there. So, out of the cars I've owned, my favorite car is probably my Evo 8, which is long gone, but
It's a nice
I love
ride.
that thing. Yeah, I love that thing. It was stock turbo E85, Pepper mod flashed, which is before I even got into computers, but it kind of gave me a little bit of insight into flashing custom ROMs and tuning, and yeah, it's a pretty fun car. Probably followed by my S2000, which I did a
Oh,
ton of road
dang.
racing in. So yeah, which that was an incredible car for road racing. I really enjoyed driving that thing. So
Yeah. I used to have a Toyota Supra when I was stationed in Japan, and it wasn't
uh,
it wasn't a
there-
cool one, but go ahead.
was it Mark III or Mark IV?
It was a Mark IV, but it was stock and automatic.
Oh, gotcha. It'd still be worth a fortune these days, I feel like. Those things are incredible, man. The amount of money that they go for. Yeah, it's insane.
I don't think I'll ever be able to afford one again. That's for sure.
Yeah, I don't know many people that can. They're stupid expensive now. All the cool cars are expensive now.
Yeah.
So that's why I drive just a stock WRX now.
Yeah. I was hoping maybe a STI WRX from the t-shirt you're wearing. But hey, I mean Evo 8's still a sick car.
Yeah, they're incredible.
But for those that may not have heard of you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so have a lot of different professional backgrounds. Done a lot of different stuff. I did a few years in the Navy. Worked on CWIS mounts. I did 3 deployments while I was there on board destroyer, and got out from there. And the plan was to go to school for finance and try to go into that field, just because I was kind of interested in trading and stuff like that at the time. So I attempted that and was not all that successful at it, or not really at all, I guess, because I'm not in it right now. But um, I I did like 4 or 5 semesters of school and like didn't do very well at it and just kind of gave up on it. But um, while I was going to school, I did some time as a groundskeeper at a rally school, and then did some driving instruction while I was there. So did that for about a year, and then after that, I moved on to um, doing in a pawnbroker. So that was actually a really interesting industry, and I learned a ton about people and different like cool things that are out there.
Yeah, that
Um,
sounds
I
interesting.
really
What do you think is the craziest thing someone's tried to sell you?
I don't even remember now. Like I want to say like it wasn't anything like all that crazy, but I want to say like one guy brought in a bear pelt or something, and I was like, I don't even like know what to do with this dude. I mean, like, like it's honestly a lot more boring than people would probably give it credit for on a day to day basis. Just because you see a lot of like the same day in day out type stuff. It's like video game systems, TVs, that type of that's the stuff you deal with on a day to day basis. So yeah, but I always kind of got into the like high end watches and like diamonds and stuff like that. That was really cool because, like, you really had to develop, like, a good eye and a good feel for, um, like, spotting fakes and then also, like, judging, like, diamond quality, um, and then buying gold. That was always really good, because you have to be pretty careful about buying fakes there too. Like, there's, like, varying degrees of, like, terrible fakes and then stuff that's like, it's actually not, like, too bad. That might actually get somebody type of stuff. And you just have to learn like the type of stuff that you see on a day-to-day basis, and pretty soon you get to the point where you can spot stuff really quick. Coins are another big one. So yeah, that was a really interesting industry. So I did that for about 3 years, and then actually went back to work at the rally school, trying to do sales, which I failed miserably at. I was terrible at that. um, I'm definitely not cut out for that type of sales. But I did more driving instruction while I was there, so that was a lot of fun. But my failure there is ultimately what pushed me into this industry and got me using my GI Bill again. So I started back at school and saw that they had like a certification for uh, programming. So I was like, hey, computer programming sounds interesting. I've always kind of been interested in that or interested in the idea of it, since I was younger. So I decided that I would do that because it would, well, I'm sure the GI Bill pays you like a housing stipend, so it would provide some income while I was going to school,
Yep.
um, so I could at least pay the bills. So I did that, and not long after I got into that, I found out that this whole field is a thing, and I was like, "That's awesome!" Because like I remember when I was like a lot younger, I was very interested in like how do you get into computer hacking? Like I don't how what is this?
Yeah.
So I found out it was a thing, and I'm like, "Wow, okay. Well, now that I'm older and now that I know how to like look things up and answer my own questions, like let's figure out what this is about." So I kind of started toying around with it, and that's when I fell down the rabbit hole. And I didn't research it for long, and I was like, I think that's what I want to do. So I literally became the meme of the guy stepping over like all the stairs of learning like the stuff that you should learn before you get into this field. And like I was that guy that was like, yeah, screw all that stuff. Like I just want to hack things.
Yeah.
So, but the good thing is that like what most people would consider a mistake, and I kind of consider a good thing is the interest in it led me to learn all of the basics that I needed to learn to like get into this field. So yeah, that's kind of where I am now. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a crazy journey. Just I mean, from the get go, dude. Like leaving the Navy and then going into pawnbrokering and then finally up to where you are now. That's absolutely insane. But in a way, I kind of relate because when I was younger, like I just had like this weird thing about like with Legos as an example, just like putting stuff together and kind of that same thing, like programming. kind of like sparked my interest. And at the time, like I had no idea that this was even a possibility for a career. So like you, I was like, just one day I was like, oh dang, this sounds freaking awesome. So
Yeah, for sure. I come from like I grew up in like a really rural area, like down a dirt road. So I lived in pretty much the middle of nowhere. I hate to use that term because now that I live kind of in the, you know, like I guess where I live now, like there's definitely once I get outside of the city, there's more middle of nowhere than where I grew up, but I was still pretty rural, like in the woods, like nothing really, so to speak, dial up internet that finally came around when I was in like seventh grade or something. And yeah, I just like looked into programming briefly, and my dad looked at that and he's like, "What are you doing on my computer?" And I was like, I have no idea. Like, I don't know how I tell this computer to do things, but like I tried to learn it, but as a kid, I just had like no direction, and like that stuff wasn't available in my high school, or middle school or any of that. Like, there was nobody that really knew that stuff or could like explain how it works. So I kind of just gave up on it after trying for a little bit, and just the idea fell into the back of my head. So
yeah. Did you have a different career plan when you were younger?
when I was younger, not really. I I never really had a plan. I think I had picked out whenever I went to a couple career fairs. I wanted to be like an automotive engineer or something, but I didn't even really know what that meant. I
Yeah.
just like design cars. Sure, that sounds cool, but the kind of stuff that I would design, like I'm pretty sure nobody would buy other than like me and three other people. So like, oh, you don't want to drive around in like a full race car on the street? What do you mean? Like, what's the matter with you people?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I wanted to be an anesthesiologist. All I really knew about it was that they put people to sleep and they make a lot of money. Had no idea you need like courses in freaking like chemical engineering and all of this other crazy stuff. So yeah, and I didn't have the grades to do that anyway. So like there was no way I was ever going to get into med school.
yeah, my grades were pretty bad for a long time, and then I'd say around like the end of 11th grade, I started like kind of getting the fear of like I'm gonna like not be able to do anything if I don't fix these things. So I used to stay after school and like do these remediation classes to try and help bring my GPA up, and it was all kind of in vain. But it brought my GPA up enough for to where I at least graduated with honors. But again, that didn't really like help me at all because I still got denied to like most schools just because I didn't have great test scores or anything. So yeah, ultimately, I just kind of ended up going to the military.
Yeah, same here. And I think that's one aspect of this career field that I really like is that you don't necessarily need to be, like a super top of the line student. You don't have to have super good grades. I like that just about anybody can get into this career if they really want to.
Yeah, me too. I don't feel like there's like the interactions I've had in this field too. I don't feel like there's a whole lot of people that really judge you on that either. Like it's just most people are kind of the same way. Like they're not brilliant, but like pretty intelligent, and just do a lot of reading and a lot of studying and a lot of messing up and eventually figure it out. So
Yeah. So I guess once you realized that this was a career that you wanted to do, how did you go about doing it? Like what I guess CTFs, did you take any online courses? How did you go from, what you were doing before to your first role in cybersecurity?
yeah, so I continued on after I had um, went back to school, and they had a network security course. So I made that my like primary major, which this is a 2-year degree, by the way. It's not a 4-year degree. It was just at a community college. Um, so I did that, and then I made programming my minor. So that allowed me to, because I had completed a lot of my gen ed the first time I went back to school and failed. Um, it allowed me to keep like a full course load, which allowed me to keep getting full GI Bill benefits. Because if you don't have like the 12 credit hours or whatever, then they'll only give you a percentage of your housing stipend. So I needed that full amount because like did not have a lot of money while I was going to school.
Yeah.
So I needed to like be able to pay the rent and stuff. But so I did that for um until I graduated, but about a year into that, which covered like all kinds of basic stuff, classes for like A plus. It helped me do like Python classes, web development classes. So I got experience with like Python, HTML, JavaScript, C++, Java, like a pretty good assortment of languages. Not a master in any of them by any means, but just enough to like where you know how to do basic things in them. And then also they had classes that would teach you like the stuff you need to know for A plus, like trying to think back now, some basic networking, like terminating Cat5 cables, subnetting, that type of stuff. So I did that for a while, and those were good. Probably the biggest thing that helped me get into IT in general, but I would say this field as well was like I got really interested in Linux just from seeing whenever I started researching. I saw people use Kali, so of course I did what everybody says you shouldn't do, and like I tried to install it on my only working computer at the time because I needed to be Mr. Elite Hacker. So
Yep, been there.
I I I did that, and luckily did not like nuke my only working computer at the time, but it definitely like screwed something up because Windows updated and overwrote the bootloader. So yeah, I went to like boot into Kali and it was just like gone. It just skipped it,
Oh
and
no.
like it went. I think it like just went to Grub and then like just went straight to Windows, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I just couldn't get into Kali anymore at all. So I ended up just going in and deleting that partition and re-extending the disk and getting my space back. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna like not screw with that anymore. So um, yeah, total noob. Like didn't understand virtual machines or any of that at the time. The only thing I knew how to do was go in and follow walkthroughs. But so did that, and then started looking into it more as like a base OS, and came across Fedora, and I put that on a separate partition on my desktop and started using that more regularly and started getting more and more into it. Uh, and realized that I didn't like I needed to learn how to use the command line to do a lot of stuff that I wanted to do. So that took me into doing a course on YouTube from a guy named Tutorial Linux. He has like a zero to sysadmin course. So enough reading, I kind of determined that I need to learn how a lot of different things work. So maybe a good route to do that would be to go into sysadmin. And then also I saw a lot of positions for that at the like one place there was to work where I was originally from. So like that kind of seemed like an obvious choice. So I did that, and that got me pretty proficient on the command line to where I at least wasn't like, you know, like how do I get back to the other place where I was type of stuff. So that helped a lot. And then setting up a few services at my house once I did get pretty proficient in Linux. I think I set up like a file server at home. I set up a print server, and did stuff like that. Researched like the different configurations on those and screwed with them, and actually had it working like pretty well. To where like all the computers in the house would just on boot just connect to it, and you could store stuff there. So that was like a pretty good learning experience, and I did enough of that stuff and following along with different tutorials on pen testing. And at that point, I was using Linux like pretty much exclusively as my desktop, and could fix like most of the crap that came up on a day-to-day basis, which ultimately led me into my first job, which was a Linux sysadmin at a local university. So once I got in there, like my learning curve went up a lot just because I was, doing it 8 hours a day and having to fix things 8 hours a day and having to build new things 8 hours a day. And that's usually what I recommend to people is whatever you want to do, like get into that field as fast as possible just for the learning opportunity. Just because it's a lot easier to learn when you're getting paid to be there and like you have 8 hours a day where you're doing nothing but that. Like, I feel like that's where you, like, really start learning a lot quick and having to do it day in, day out. So, that's kinda what led me into it. Um, I would say more so the self-study than the degree, but the degree definitely helped.
Yeah, and I'm a huge fan of building labs myself. But I've talked to a number of other people in our industry, particularly more younger ones, and it's kind of surprising. Like from my understanding, there's like a good amount of people that do home labs, but the ones that do have a really hard time communicating the experience that they gain from doing that to like HR or people that they're getting like doing the hiring process with. What advice would you give to someone in that situation?
I usually so HR, I have no idea because I have no idea how they work. And
They're a mystery
yeah,
beyond understanding.
pretty much. It's all apparently written down somewhere, but I don't know where that is. So I usually try and do more like storytelling, I guess. So if somebody asks me a question on like a specific topic, and it's not like a yes or no question, or it's not like a what would you use to connect to this port type of question where it's like a very defined answer, but the more open-ended questions, I would try and sort of like relate some of my experience in the lab in the way of like storytelling. So if somebody asked me, "Oh, tell me about time that you like learned something that helped you a lot doing web app pen testing or something. Like, what are some of the things that have helped you?" I would say, "Oh, well, in my home lab, I like to stand up, various services that I find on GitLab that are open projects. And it's a great learning experience for me to pull those down and learn how to set them up and learn how to configure them in a way that'll give me the information I need to, help find vulnerabilities in them." So I've done that, which is what I did for like the Suite CRM vulnerability that I found. A lot of that had to do with like standing it up and seeing how it worked to know that there was even a vulnerability there. So I'd probably like tell that story. And that's a way that like I'm not talking about anything that I've really done professionally. I'm talking about all stuff that I did on my own, but it's in a way that I think anybody that's hiring for a pen tester should see value in. And if they don't, then that's on them, I guess.
No, I totally agree, and that's a good perspective to get because there's really stupid people out there like myself who would be like, instead of giving multiple examples of where I've learned something from my home lab, like I'd try and just find like one specific way of where I could work that knowledge in and be
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, I built a home lab, like built all these servers, tied everything together, did a pen test on it, and then I'd probably like never mention it again. So
Yeah. Another good way is something I've been trying to get a lot better at is while you're doing things. I'm not very good at blogging, but I am getting better at note taking, and I'm trying to kind of turn my note taking into something that could be blogged. So I'd kind of talk myself into blogging by talking myself into taking notes, which is something I did on uh, like a SSH, a little SSH tunneling thing. So somebody asked me a question on that, and I started writing notes down. And I'm like, well, by the time I get to the end of this, there'll probably be enough there to do a blog. So why don't I just like kind of write it in Markdown and like turn it into a blog? Like I can take notes in Markdown and then kind of turn it into something that I can throw on my blog. And that kind of turned into like, well, I'll just write it in blog format like while I'm doing this thing. So I feel like that's another really good way to do it too, because then you can uh, point whoever's interviewing you to your blog page, and there you go. There's your experience from your home lab, and they can read it and see all the stuff that you did. And it's pretty. I think it'd be pretty good.
I think so
So
too.
even if you're, in the middle of an interview, like if you have the opportunity to screen share or something, you can just screen share it and walk them through it, like how you did it.
Yeah, that's a really good point too. I know we're kind of jumping around on the questions a bit, but I don't
It's all
mind.
good.
While we're on this topic, what what do you think were some resources that really helped shape your knowledge as you were kind of getting your feet wet with pen testing tactics?
My sysadmin experience, I always fall back on that. So I still have quite a bit of resources that I found there, just various websites and stuff. Hack the Box was very, very good when like I didn't really know about it when I was doing OSCP. So I found out about IPSec like a couple weeks before I tested, and like I was like, where was this the whole time?
Yeah, no
So
kidding.
so I didn't have VIP or anything yet because I didn't realize how amazing it was, but I should have had that, and I should have been doing IPSec walkthroughs like 100%. So that is like probably resource number one to me, to anybody that would be looking to get into pen testing, is like just buy a Hack the Box VIP. Just do it. Like I know, like believe me, when I was in school, like $100 is a lot of money. At the time, like I was budgeting every month
Oh yeah.
and like running out of money at the end of the month, and shopping at Aldi, and like maybe we can get, instead of 5 cans of beans, we can drop it down to 4 or something. Like it was literally that tight sometimes. But that $100 you spend on Hack the Box is like it's it's really like, in my opinion, it's a must. Um, but grab that and follow along with IPSec walkthroughs. Other things I found valuable, uh, any type of like free CTFs or machines you can do from Vulnhub. So I did a few machines from there whenever I was first learning. Um, I went to a local meetup at a larger university that was in town. It wasn't my university, but they had an InfoSec club. Going to those and getting involved with other people, being around other people with a similar mindset is like very helpful.
Yes, yes,
Even if it's
absolutely.
just like discords or whatever. Just getting on there and like even just like sharing, hints or whatever for boxes, or asking other people to help you understand something. Like it's very, very valuable. That can save you, weeks of not understanding something when somebody's just like, no, like just look at this. You see that? Do you see that? Okay, now put them together. There you go. Now you understand. Like that little 5-minute conversation can save you weeks. So yeah, those would probably be my big recommendations for resources. And they're mostly free. So don't feel like you have to spend a bunch of money on stuff. Like it's all out there.
Yeah, I think it's important to explore those other ones because like a lot of people will hear about PWK and get great course, but I mean, like, there's plenty of free options too.
Yeah, I always tell people, like if I did it again, I would just do the 30 days, and like that's fine for me. Like I didn't find the lab as, I guess, enthralling as some people did. It was like it was a cool lab and it was good, and like I learned stuff in it, but I mean to me it wasn't really like the value wasn't there over like a hacked box, being able to stand up a machine or whatever. Um you can generally find machines that you can sort of do the same type of stuff with pivoting and whatever. It's in different ways. You'll be like pivoting into something they have stood up on one box, but again, that's not like, you know, I think you'll live without it, or I think there's other ways to learn that if you really want to learn it. So
Yeah, and I don't know. You did the old course like me, right?
yeah, I did it in 2019.
Yep, sounds right. I guess they've made a lot of changes that people really like, especially like a small Active Directory environment. But
That would be really cool because that's probably one of my shortcomings is Active Directory, which I'm like playing huge catch up on now, since I moved on to a red team. But yeah, that would be really cool.
yeah. So on that note, among all of like the different sub doctrines of pen testing, you got like internal, external web apps. Even now you could even throw in like cloud and IoT. Which of those do you think has been like the most exciting for you?
Definitely web app. Um, I really, really got interested in like white box pen testing. So now I always kind of lean towards, if I run into a web app, I always want to find a way to like stand up my own little instance and look at how it's doing things. And if there's source code available, I like to look at the source code. If there's not, I like to either try to reverse what's there, or like a .NET application, I'd want to, throw it into dnspy or something and pull it apart, or Java, I'd want to throw it in JD GUI or one of those and get the source from it, and then start doing source to sync. Um, turn on all the debugging stuff, that type of thing. So web app to me has been probably the most interesting. And to me, there's like nothing like that feeling of whenever you find like a previously unknown vulnerability and you're able to get a shell back from something. Like that's a really good feeling.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of gravitate towards that stuff, and then always kind of go towards like Linux privest stuff. Like that's always a lot of fun too.
Interesting choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's not that I don't enjoy privilege escalation. It's, I don't know. There's other aspects of the field that I think I like more, but that's neither here nor there, I guess. Okay, so with the interest in web app, you had found a vulnerability in Sweet CRM. What's the story behind that? Like how did you go about discovering it? What made you choose Sweet CRM over maybe some other web app? Kind of tell us as much as you can.
So on that, I had seen a lot of like CRM vulnerabilities that people had found. Oddly enough, on LinkedIn, people were just sharing a lot of like different CRM vulnerabilities at the time. So I was like, like should probably look at some type of CRMs and see what's going on there. So that was the big one that I came across. I think I just searched for like large open source CRM or something on Google, and like that came back. So pulled it down and started looking at it, and didn't really do a whole lot as far as like turning stuff on. Like I think I turned on query logging and crap like that to see if I could find any like SQL injections, but I didn't find anything really there. So I started looking at the file system and saw that the log was being put in the web root, and then I was like, okay, well that's in the web root. Like I can view that if I just type the file in. And so I went, like I logged in as admin and then looked at the settings, like the system settings that you could configure, and saw that you could set the name of the log file and then you could set the extension as well. So that obviously like perked my interest, and immediately I tried to change it to .php and it was like, nah, you can't do that. So like, okay, well I can't change the extension, but could I set the file name to just have an extension and then set the extension to nothing? So did that and it was fine with that. So I'm like, okay, well it's obviously like cool with being a PHP file. So I went on the system and just echoed in some PHP to see if it would actually execute, and it did. Like, okay, well now I just need to find a way to pollute the log file with some PHP code. So I remember looking at the for SQL injection, I had seen that whenever you like change your username, like I think I tried to put some SQL in there or something and didn't get anything out of it, but I remember that input going right in there. So I identified like a few characters that was sanitizing, and saw that it was not sanitizing what I needed to do PHP code. So I just threw that in as a username, and sure enough, it executed. So at that point, I was like, sweet, like we got code execution. And then I also found another kind of cool thing that just turned out to be a misconfiguration that they didn't have any guidance on in the docs. But it was you could upload a document to there, and it didn't really care what you uploaded. So you could upload like just a text file or whatever,
Oh, that's
but it would
hilarious.
execute JavaScript. Yeah, you could, but it would execute JavaScript. So I was like, "Oh, okay, this is cool. Like, can you do it as a non-privileged user?" And sure enough, you could. I was like, "Great, this would be exactly what you do. You just, log in as a low priv user, upload that, and then have it do cross-site request forgery on behalf of the admin to change the to change the log file name to a PHP file, and then change their username, and boom, you get a shell as a like from a low priv user." So I like set up the whole chain and sent it to them, and they had a little bit of trouble replicating at first, but then we're able to replicate it, and they're like, "Yeah, that document upload one, that's just like a configuration error, and I'm like, okay, well, that it didn't have anything about that like in the docs, so you may want to like tell people about that so they don't sort of make that same mistake. So they're like, okay, we'll update that, and then yeah, like I just basically waited till the fix came out and then messaged them again, and they're like, yeah, we don't care if you blog about it. So I wrote up a little blog on it and then submitted for a CV.
That's awesome. That's super cool bug. What do
Yeah.
you think was the like looking back? What do you think like start to finish? How long did it take you from discovery to disclosure?
Ooh, I'd have to look at my. Um, Let me go. I think I have the timeline in my blog post. I want to say it was like a month or two. It is. Yeah, I reported on August 6th, and then I think I did the write up on the 6th of November. That's when I requested the CV anyway.
Oh,
So
okay. About 2 or 3 months.
not too long. Yeah, it was like basically a release cycle. So if you ever report a bug to them, it's probably going to get fixed and then included in the next release cycle. But they were like really responsive. I think like 1 or 2 emails I had to email them twice, but other than that, like in my opinion and based on other experiences with vendors, they were very good.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome. So this is a feeling that I don't know is really hard to describe if people have like never found their own 0 day, but like there's that rush of excitement and you're like, yeah, and then you tell them and then they're like, okay, we will allow you to disclose, but we don't know when the patch is going to come. What do you do to like pass the time while you're like, because I know like every time I find one, I'm like, dude, I want to disclose as soon as possible. This is awesome.
yeah, yeah, I definitely get that excitement too to disclose. But yeah, I don't like. I never really set out on, I guess, anything in life to piss anybody off. So I like. It's not. I guess it's not as much fun for me making people mad as it is for other people. But yeah, I always try to like keep a good relationship with people. But um, yeah, I usually just kind of like will archive it, and like there's usually enough other stuff I want to do, like writing up a good POC that doesn't have my like terrible code in it. Like I try to like clean that stuff up and like maybe do it correctly. um, and then I type up like the blog post, and like enough of that work is usually there to keep me busy. And if I finished all that, then I usually just kind of move on to whatever the next thing I want to look at is, and just wait for the release to come. I'll set up like on stuff that I find. I usually set up like a forget what the uptime robot or something to look at their webpage to see when the release comes out. So it'll just notify me as soon as they like update their stuff or push a new release. And then as soon as that happens, I like email them like, hey, like saw you released a thing. Like, are you cool if I blog about this? And yeah, that's kind of what I do.
Yeah. Well, I think that's really good info for people to know too, because like I know when I had started looking for bugs, like I didn't know if I should talk to MITRE at all, or you know, does the developer, are they the ones that request the CV? And just I had like zero knowledge going into it.
That stuff's still Wild West. So I asked them if they wanted to request it, and they're like, yeah, we'll request it like in due time. And I was like, okay. And so they never showed up. Like I never saw anything get reserved. And then when they released their thing, I messaged them and asked if I could blog about it. And they're like, yeah, sure. And I was like, are you gonna request a CV? And they're like, yeah, we will. Okay. And I was like, all right, I'm just gonna request it. Like, so in my opinion, and like my advice to people would be to, I guess, give them the opportunity to do it. But I feel like if they don't give you like a date when they're gonna do it or some type of like hard commitment, then if you want it, just go request it yourself. And like, I mean, what does it matter if it's been fixed and released and everything, Like,
Yeah.
I mean, like, I feel like at that point I'd be like, dude, I like, there's plenty of opportunity for you to do this. I mean, if you want to get mad at me about it, whatever. But like, I gave you plenty of opportunity to go and do this on your own, and you didn't. So that's kind of your choice.
Yeah, and I mean, like I've dealt with awesome people to work with throughout the disclosure process, but I've worked with a number of people like that too.
Yeah, Usually just inactivity.
Yeah. So like for the smaller ones these days, you know, I'll just go straight to MITRE and be like, "Hey, I got this bug. Can we reserve it until it's disclosed at a later date?" And they'll be like, "Yep, cool." And then whether the developer wants to or not, you know, whenever I'm, you know, done, you know, notifying them, you know, I wait 90 days and then I don't even ask anymore. I just because
Yeah,
like
I don't blame you. Um, yeah, I've thought about a lot of times having like a report template that I submit that kind of has a lot of verbiage for that crap in it. Like, hey, if you don't reply like 90 days, this is just going out. If you reply and like talk to me, then I'll work out whatever you want to work out.
yeah, well, it's for me it's been easier to do it that way. Unless I'm doing something with like one of the bigger vendors, because like you know at least for the smaller ones like they'll give you or well they'll have an opportunity to be like no we don't want you to disclose it all, or on the other hand you know if you do disclose you know they might change their mind and then turn around and sue you, whereas like if you don't even talk about it with them like they can't prove that they said no and they can't prove otherwise, you know, so it's like a really weird case of like asking for forgiveness is like much safer than just avoiding it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like you could probably word that correctly in your like whenever you submit for it that like, it's going to be disclosed because I found it and it's mine. So, um, if you like choose not to accept it, then cool. If you choose to accept it, then cool. Like, just like be cordial.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
like, this is my payment for like doing this stuff. Is I just kind of want my name associated with it because there's a lot of work and I'm giving it to you for free. So
yeah. And you know, I think that's definitely like one of the bigger points that you brought up was just keeping a good relationship with people when you're doing that.
yeah, like I know for them it's not nearly as exciting as it is for me because for them all it is work and like they're not the ones like I mean they're not getting anything other than work really to fix this and they are getting not having people get compromised in their application. So there's some payment there, but yeah, like I understand that for them it's like not all that exciting, but at the same time like if I disclosed a bug and they're like, "Dude, don't talk about it for like a year." Like after a year, I don't care. I'd be like, "Fair enough. I mean, sure, I'll wait a year, I guess." Like I'm probably not going to argue with them about it cuz I'm not like that type of person, but
Yeah,
yeah, if they're going to be like super rude about it or whatever, then like and my attitude obviously changes as well. So,
yeah. But I mean, like that's an important skill to develop, like even on the job, is maintaining good relationships with people.
yeah.
What what do you think it? I guess in like a more specific way, because like people will disagree about stuff all the time. What do you think are some misconceptions people have about pen testing and red teaming?
So I guess in that like I mean, obviously I think like every like I think it's going to change like depending on what team you go on because each team's going to have kind of their different feel and like mindset they've developed around it. But I kind of feel like overall in it, um, sometimes for red team stuff, I feel like people coming into the industry might be a little too focused on like vulnerabilities per se, which they are definitely a part of it. But I think they kind of focus a little bit too much on that and not like enough on um, like using things that don't really stand out in an environment to do what you need and like the focus on that. So my experience so far like doing red teaming is it's a lot more of using just the regular like very boring things to do what you need to do and using those to gain access, using those to move around, and then using those to do whatever it is that your objective is on an engagement. So I feel like that's probably where the disconnect is whenever you have like whenever people are wanting to get into pen testing or red teaming. Um, think a lot of people probably at times walk right past pen testing and go into red teaming, think that they're going to get to just hack the planet and like find a bunch of cool 0 days and stuff, and then you get there and it's like, nah, it's kind of just you know, finding out how authentication works on Windows, and then uh, enumerating groups and finding out what this person has access to, and figuring out a way to move from this box to that box as that user and not trip a bunch of alarms. And then once you get there, what's laying around at that box, and maybe you'll you know dig into some stuff there and find more creds and move around. But I don't think that stuff's quite as exciting as what like people that getting into the industry would think it is. Versus like what we were talking about earlier with finding vulnerabilities in web apps and pwning them. But that's also like the type of stuff that would, if it's not a 0 day, it's probably going to get you caught on like an actual red team assessment. So at least that would be my feeling on it.
Yeah, yeah, I actually agree quite a bit. Because like that was my mentality before going into it, was just like, oh well, easy. You scan stuff and then you run exploits and then you write a report. But no, red team is completely different from that. Like you're absolutely right. Like staying under the radar, that's like a key piece of it.
Yeah, unless of course like your objective is to be a bull in a china shop. I mean,
Yeah.
by all means, if that's what the objective is for your engagement, is to like land in and like trip over a trash can or something in the middle of the night, then by all means, like jump in there and nmap everything and like start YOLO and metasploit at whatever. But generally, I don't think that's normally the objective. That's probably the other thing too, is that most of the time on an engagement you have an objective or something that you're set in to do, and it's not find every possible exploit and exploit it and pwn everything, because you may find something that is vulnerable to an exploit, but does it help you get to your objective? No. Then why do you care? Like, you're not just going to go like knock over that machine and risk getting caught or getting whatever, and just to get access to that machine for no reason. So um yeah, that to me is where it's like, if you that's like what you're into, then you probably would want to lean more towards like the pen test side. Um, but again, I feel like the lines blur there, and like there's probably places you work where you go to work as a pen tester and you end up doing more red teamy stuff, and then there's probably places where you go and you work as a red teamer and you end up doing more pen testy things. And I don't know. I mean, I guess it's just whenever you're interviewing, like good questions to ask. Like,
Yes.
how do you guys do your like how do you guys do your red team engagements? How do you do like pen test engagements? Like, talk to me about both of those. Like, how do you guys do them? Because I know they differ, and see if it matches kind of what you want to do.
Yeah, and like I agree, that is a good question to ask, because like obviously when people are doing interviews, like job interviews, they're usually like expecting, hey, you ask me a question, I'll give you an answer. But I mean, it goes the other way around too. You should really like take the time to kind of interview the company as well.
Yeah, 100% agree. Yeah, I definitely am big on that. Mostly for the fact that I don't want to end up working somewhere that I'm miserable. So, um, just life experiences and working at places that weren't so great. Yeah, I'm very, very
Uncle
like,
Sam.
yeah, I'm very cautious about like, who am I going to be working with? Like, are they gonna, like, is it gonna make me miserable? So
Yeah. Well, I guess on a side note, what you don't have to go into like NDA or anything, but like, what would you say are key differences of what you do as a red teamer versus what you did in a previous role as a penetration tester?
key differences are kind of what we already talked about. It's just moving from like red teaming in general to me is just a lot more slow, calculated, methodical. I feel like a lot like probably a lot more team decisions on what you do. You're probably not just gonna go in and do anything like by yourself. It's gonna be like it's gonna be discussed. Gonna talk it over and like make sure that that's actually taking us towards our objective. So that's probably like the key difference to me for what I do as a red teamer versus a pen tester.
Definitely the same with me. But I guess on a different note, so having gone through both OSCP and OSWE, some people may wonder if it's really just as straightforward as going from OSCP to OSWE, because I know like my experience with OSCE, it was like you needed a whole subset of knowledge that you never learned in OSCP. Do you feel like OSWE was more straightforward than that, where it was kind of more structured, or I guess easy to go from OSCP to that level?
If web app is your thing, I think that it will be a pretty easy transition to step into that course material. But if it's not, then probably not. So it is, in my opinion, still a very different set of skills. Um, but I definitely think it could be done. Or if you are just if OSCP really doesn't do it for you, like I think if you had a decent dev background, or if dev was your thing, then or if web app testing was your thing, you could probably go into OSWE and come out on the other side. So, but yeah, I would say it's kind of the same. It's a different set of skills, and probably the biggest thing for any of those courses to me is developing an offensive mindset. And uh, if you already have that, great. But I know that's kind of something that's a little bit hard to develop, and it took me a little bit of time to develop too. Even doing like CTFs and stuff like that. Um, Going from sysadmin into pen testing, like it's really kind of I guess not really a super hard thing to describe, but um, something that I noticed a lot was just like whenever I look at something, looking at it from the avenue of like how can I abuse it, which sounds simple, but it's kind of hard to like to be in that mindset on like every single thing you look at in a web app. So I guess this kind of digressed from the original question, but uh, yeah, I think it's definitely possible to go from OSCP to OSWE, but not like necessary.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wouldn't say it was. I wouldn't say it was a total divergence. I think there was like some good follow up there too. Like, what do you think was the most challenging part about the course?
Um, it's just like a lot of material. Um, so it's a lot of different things to consider and attack paths, and you're messing with like a bunch of different languages. So um, yeah, I mean, it can just kind of get overwhelming. Like I feel like there's enough to learn just about, say, how different frameworks in PHP work. So if you just took that as a course, like I feel like there's tons of material just there, like enough to be its own OS, blah blah. Just like PHP web apps, like there's so many things in those that like people could screw up, or that could be overlooked, that could lead to a vulnerability. So like when you combine like that, I guess amount of like breadth and depth in like one language, and then you spread it across like all these other languages, I feel like that's where it kind of gets like tough. And just like knowing that you could be up against like anything in any one of those languages come exam time, and like you're gonna have to like find that you know in 48 hours or whatever. So I feel like that's kind of the overwhelming part. But Um, yeah, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be, I guess, if that would make anybody feel any better. But um, Yeah, definitely. I would say definitely go into it like expecting the same amount or more work than you did in OSCP.
Yeah. How do you think it's impacted your methodology? Do you feel like it's changed at all? Maybe gotten more intense as a result of the course?
So I feel like it really gave me a methodology, if anything, for like for how I do those types of things. Because before I kind of just like I don't even really know what I did. I just like looked at stuff and like I feel like got lucky sometimes. And I mean, obviously, like I know looking for like where input goes in and like what happens to it. I mean, fundamentally, I think everything in these in our field is pretty simple when you look at like the general concept of it, but actually doing it correctly every single time and like following it to fruition on whatever path like input is going, like it's hard. I mean, it's hard to like stay on your game 24/7 like every time you're doing that and like do it all the way to fruition, like trace every method call through every method call down to every method call, like 9 or 10 layers deep to find out what's actually happening with this freaking input to like to find some little command injection vulnerability.
It almost gets
But
overwhelming.
it's just like I just get lazy about it. I'm just like, oh god, like when does Java quit calling this shit? Like to the end of like what file does this shit end in? Just like where? but but like doing that is kind of difficult. So um yeah, that I would say is like the hard part of it. But yeah, now I feel like I've gotten really good at just grabbing apps or like even little snippets of code that I'm looking at and standing up my own little test instances to see exactly what they're doing and exactly how I can manipulate it. Because a lot of times you may not even be able to like pull down this giant application. You might just have to like take a section of code and stand up some way of like putting input into it that's very similar to whatever you're looking at on the front end. And like, how can I put input into this and like just screw with it, like fuzz it, whatever. Um, like analyze how it's processing this input because I can't quite figure it out in the from looking at the code, but I'm pretty sure if I could like put a couple debug statements in here and see exactly what it's doing, like that might help me understand it better. So I've gotten a lot better at like being able to do that stuff kind of quickly, like to look at different apps.
Well, that's a good skill to have because I know maybe like a lot of the pen testers in the audience might not really get that because just of how short those engagements are. But I know, like for me, like we get like max like 3 or 4 months for an engagement, and so like there'll be times like I'll look
Yeah,
at stuff and I'll be like, well, time to spin up a lab and see what I can mess with this.
yeah, 100% agree. Yeah, that's another thing to go back to one of your previous questions, but yeah, in combination with slow, long, calculated engagements, long. So
Yep.
I think that's pretty standard across red teams is to do longer engagements. So yeah, I would definitely say look forward to that.
Yeah. But I don't know, like AWAE that certainly changed my methodology with web apps. Like I don't even approach them the same anymore. Like
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but like before I would just maybe run Nikto and then do like GoBuster or Dirtbuster on it, and then that was my methodology. But
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of did the same. It's crazy how like I felt like the less I knew, the more I wanted to just like black box it and just kind of like I guess sling shit at the wall and see what sticks. And in reality, it's knowing now I'm like that's not really like a great idea. I mean, maybe you get lucky and find some debug endpoint or something, but other than that, like nah, I don't really think that's gonna work on a whole lot of stuff these days. I mean, I never say never anymore just because of like the shit that I've seen, but
yeah,
like 100% something from like like 101 OSCP might work. Who knows? But I definitely much more want to go to like I want to actually see what this thing is doing with my input and like approach things that way. So
yeah. 'Cause I mean, like one, doing both of those is noisy, and two, like as noisy as it is, like you don't get a lot of return from it. you know. Or if
Yeah.
you just like
And
spider an application with burp, like that's almost everything that you need.
yep. And you're also probably going to run into some rate limiting or possibly a block.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, kind of bringing this towards a close. What I know we had kind of talked about this particular question, but hey, the time is right. I believe in you. What do you think? What do you think the future of pen testing looks like? So I guess to like kind of preface that one, you know, there's like all of these like weird like automated pen testing suites for sale out there these days. Do you think that's our future, or do you think we're going to be staying manual?
I mean, I think that might be the future of like vulnerability scanning, but I think that pen testers are probably going to do what pen testers do, which is evolve. And I mean, I think every solution introduces new vulnerabilities to anything. So
Yeah.
if you build more shit onto anything, it's more opportunities for failure. So, you know, unless you happen to do it like 100% right, which rarely happens, and like that solution somehow fixes one of the previous problems. But I still feel like there's always trade-offs and always introductions of new things to abuse. So I don't necessarily think it's going to fix a whole lot, but um, hopefully it like reduces vulnerabilities. I mean, it's always better to like, it's always great whenever you can, you know, reduce the number of like the simple things that are out there. Like, I guess one of the things I always think about with like fixes or solutions or whatever I want to introduce is like if I can just take care of that 80% of shit that consumes my time every day, like that's great. And like the 80% problem is kind of like what I generally think of it as in my head. And if it solves somebody's 80% problem, then great. It's just they get more time to solve harder problems. And that's the other thing too, is maybe pen testers don't have reports that are, a mile long or whatever, but they have a report that has one or two findings, but those one or two findings are like very impactful. Still a win. So I still think the work is there.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think there might be some aspects of the job that can be automated. On the pen testing side, I don't think there's much room for growth on the red teaming side, just all things considered. But like scanning at scale, or like that would be one area that I can think of. But I mean, even on the reporting side, like you were talking about, I don't think PDF reports are going to stay around long term. I think eventually people are going to start switching to like more like dynamic representative based like reporting tools, I guess, instead of like the actual paper report, if you will. You kind of see it going the same way?
Yeah. I mean, I'm probably different than a lot of people, but I don't want to read reports or like read PDFs. So, but on the other hand, like a lot of people I know that work in like other fields, like they love that and they want me to send everything that I send to them in a PDF. So, it's whoever I guess the consumer of the PDF is, like would depend on whether or not it goes away. But yeah, I prefer kind of just, I mean, well, I guess if I had my way, it would just be like a list of numbers, or something like how many of this, how many of that, and like I can kind of like do what I need to do with that, with some
Yeah.
command line magic. So
Yeah. But I mean, like, I certainly don't think there's going to be like AI terminators, running around like just plugging in and hacking the entire network like instantaneously. I
what?
don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't agree with you there.
Oh man, that would be absolutely wild. Right? Like, especially
Yeah,
imagine you're on like a physical engagement, you walk around the corner inside the DC and there's like a freaking Terminator standing there with a machine gun.
yeah, I don't know. I'm just gonna, I don't know, probably take PTO or something.
Maybe that's the future of red teaming. No more physical engagements.
Yeah.
But what's next for you? Got any cool projects, speaking engagements, other stuff you're working on?
Uh, no speaking engagements. It actually takes quite a bit for me to do public speaking. But um, next courses I want to do the Sector 7 malware stuff.
Oh, that'd be
Those look like
sweet.
really cool to me. Yeah, that's kind of one of the areas that I'm really interested in, is malware development. And getting into it quite a bit lately. So I definitely want to do that course. And then I think I had another one written down that I wanted to do. But I've been doing a lot of like systems development courses because that's always kind of been pretty interesting to me. And I absolutely like suck at binary exploitation. So like I
You and
need
me
a lot of
both.
help there. Yeah, I like if it goes much beyond like an OSCP buffer overflow, like you can just I mean, I'm out. Like I don't know how any of that works. And it's bad too because I read like Ombre's blog and like the stuff on there is amazing to me. But I just it just doesn't click for me for some reason and I don't think it well from what I see now I don't think it ever will, but I'm hoping that that little tidbit of information is out there that like helps that stuff click for me. So, um, yeah, I'm trying to, I guess, approach that from the other side of, well, maybe I need to actually figure out how this stuff works and like figure out how to actually build things before I break them here because the skipping steps isn't working for me on this one. So,
There's certainly a lot to digest. I mean, I talked with Morton Schenk on my last interview that I did, and that was like an hour of the entire conversation was binary exploitation. And I was just like, the entire time I was like, man, I don't know anything.
yeah. I know what a Stack Overflow is. I can follow you there. Like this says 255. I don't want to go beyond that, or I do, but past that, like I don't know, man. Did you hide a password in this file?
Well, that's super cool, man. Any plans to do, I don't know, maybe OSEE someday?
Probably not E. I thought that like since I already have the web side, like I wouldn't mind doing like OSEP and then maybe the ED and just get that like trifecta, but I'm just I don't know. I'm not sure if the I don't know if I would really need to for like career wise. I mean, I think it'd be fun and there's probably a lot to learn there, but um those courses take a lot out of me. So like
Same.
OSCP took a lot out of me. It was very like stressful. And then WE the exam was pretty stressful and like I probably give myself way too much anxiety about the exam and it takes a toll on me for like a month or so. So
Well, at least you don't have my problem where I think, oh, I'm just going to do like 15 days of the CRTO labs and then nothing for 2 weeks and take the exam. 0 out of
oh,
10, do not recommend.
oh how was that?
The course was awesome. Like even the exam was awesome. It's just there was a very clear lack of understanding of C2 on my part that is key to being successful in that course.
Yeah, that's one that's actually been on my radar a lot too. Because I started doing Rasta labs and I let my lab time expire, which kind of sucks. But um, yeah, that was really cool too. I got to like old, I want to say. It was really neat. Um, I've always wanted to go back and do that again because I heard that it's kind of similar to the CRTO. So
I'm certainly going to be doing it. There's no way I can't do it. Like that was my first exam failure in like 2 years. And so now I'm on like a vendetta to go back to it someday. But Rasa Labs is definitely on my way there. Um, well, I really appreciate your time, getting to know you, getting to understand your journey into InfoSec. Where can people reach out to you? What are some good links?
yeah, so website has pretty much all of my different contact stuff. It's just theyhack.me. And then I'm on Twitter at underscore they. Um, Kind of a weird name how that handle came to be
Oh, how did
from
it
my
come to
build.
be?
So, um, maybe you noticed this too, but in the military, uh, so I kind of like first noticed it in basic, but when people would get like screw up and get yelled at, and they'd be down some like they'd be somewhere they weren't supposed to be. And of course, they were there because another drill instructor or something sent them there. Drill instructor number 2 didn't know about that, so it obviously like get onto him and be like, what are you doing here? Like they sent me down here. He's like, who's they? And of course, the person didn't like have a conversation with this drill instructor, like, hey, what's your first name, or like, what's your last name? How are you doing? Like, I don't have a ton of anxiety right now, so I'll totally remember your name. So it just became this they thing. So all through my time in the military, people would just kind of blame things on they. So like so I obviously like I would start like exploiting that in some ways. I would just like randomly tell people like, hey, they're looking for you. I'm like, who? I'm like, so I just kind of adopted that handle, and it's just from the military, because everybody later called me they, because I always walked around saying shit like that. But
That's hilarious.
so that is where the handle comes from.
Yeah, that's a good story. Well, okay then, bringing this tour to close. Once again, Cory, thank you so much for your time. I hope this was a good experience for you. It certainly was for me. And yeah, I don't know. Like, we just kind of did this on the fly, but I'm really glad that we did.
Yeah, man. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk and share my experiences, share my failures, share some of my successes, and I appreciate it, man.
Oh, thank you. With that being said, we'll close it out. Go ahead and hit those like and subscribe buttons. Go check out Cory Billington. Once again, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your experience with all of us, and hope to do something like this again with you someday.